Okay, so now I'm going to talk about talents in Warhammer Fantasy 3rd Edition. So if you're trying to get a concept for what talents are, they're probably most equivalent to the concept of feats in D&D 3rd Edition and Pathfinder, in that they are minor benefits, minor aptitudes that your character has that can benefit them in the way of bonuses to skills, or they allow them to use certain skills in new ways, or they're just kind of minor modifiers or minor maneuvers that they can perform that make the character special. And that basically applies to Warhammer as well. Now, in the earlier video, I demonstrated the career sheets, and that the career sheets have tactic talent slots in them. Now, each career has different talent slots depending upon that career's particular bent. And there are 3 different types of talent categories. There are tactic talents, which are generally applicable to combat, so they represent bonuses to combat maneuvers or special combat maneuvers that your character can perform. There are focus talents, which generally are mental aptitudes, so they influence your mental skills, your observation and knowledge, and those other types of things. And then you also have reputation talents, and reputation talents are generally socially inclined, so they give your character bonuses to using all of their social skills, or allow them to use social skills in new ways. And so that's the 3 basic categories, and the categories themselves are just basically just meaning what they are good for, and then they tell you which careers can use which types of talents. And so, as you can see, the boatman has a tactic and 1 focus, and these the slots on the careers are intended as limits. So this means that the boatman can only be using 1 tactic talent and 1 focus talent at any given time. Now, the character may have more than 1 tactic talent. The character may have 3 or 4 or 5 tactic talents acquired, but it means he can only benefit from a single tactic at any given time. Now, during what's generally called story mode, or during your role-playing mode, you are free to swap out talents pretty much at your whim. So, during that, when round to round isn't important, when the exact measurement of time isn't really important, you can freely swap in and out which talent your character is using, just depending upon what you're trying to do. And you just say, oh yeah, so right now my character wants to use talent A, and then you can do that. Now, in combat, in encounter scenarios, where time is much more important, where you're going kind of round by round, there's specific mechanics for swapping in and out the active talent that your character is using. So, in other words, you can have a talent that you're benefiting from, but if the situation changes during the combat, you can take a maneuver, which is kind of equivalent to a move action in D&D, to swap out the talents that you're using so that you can adapt your character on the fly. Now, the tactics that are available to each career are specific to that career. So, for example, the Troll Slayer actually has 2 tactic talent slots. So he can actually be benefiting from 2 tactic talents at the same time. Now, he does not have focus or reputation talent slots, which means that he cannot use focus and reputation talents. Now, that doesn't mean that the character will never be able to use focus or reputation talents. It just means as long as the character is in the Troll Slayer career, he will not be able to use them. Now, one thing to know about careers in Warhammer, as opposed to, say, something like Dungeons & Dragons, where in D&D you might start a character as a fighter, and you could be a fighter from 1st to 20th level, and that may never change. Your careers in Warhammer will change a bit more frequently than they do in D&D. Of course, in 3rd Edition and Pathfinder, you can pretty freely multi-class, so if you really wanted to, you could take a different class every level. But most characters generally don't do that. Well, in Warhammer, your careers you'll reach a point with careers where you cannot benefit from them any longer, where you've basically learned everything that the career has to teach you. And at that point, you have to make the decision to move on to another career, and that other career may open up other talent slots, as well as other skills and that sort of thing. So, just because the Troll Slayer has 2 tactics right now, that doesn't mean that he won't eventually pursue other careers that will change up the available talent sockets that he has. And so he may, if he's so inclined, he may end up pursuing a career that has reputation talents, or a slot for reputation talents, in which case he can learn and use them. The Envoy as an example of a character that has 2 reputations. So they're very socially inclined careers, and so they naturally want to, they will benefit most from reputation talents. Or there are a couple of special examples for your spellcasting careers, which are your wizards and your clerics, or apprentices and initiates as the entry-level careers that have a special talent socket. For, in the case of wizards, they are called order talents, and in the case of initiates and clerics, they are called faith talents. And these are basically, this is basically, you kind of, in a way, you sacrifice a talent for the ability to cast magic. So your order is specifically the college of magic that you are subscribe to. And so that you will actually gain benefits based upon your order of magic. So it is still a talent. It does still give you benefits, but it's a special talent that can only be a special slot that can only be filled by your particular order of magic or your particular faith if you're a cleric. So, for example, if you are a wizard of the Bright Order, a wizard of Akshi, then you will have the appropriate talent, and that gives you certain benefits to casting your magic. Bright wizards, being the fiery, destructive wizards, can pump the damage on their attack spells. Or if you're a cleric of Sigmar, you will take the Sigmar faith talent, and you gain certain benefits for being a member of the cult or a worshipper of Sigmar. And so this can affect your spell casting and everything. So spellcasters do get special talents outside of the 3 basic tactic, focus, and reputation, but they have to devote one of their talent slots to for the fact that they are able to cast spells. And one of the advantages of the advanced careers in Warhammer, which might be related equivalently to prestige classes in Dungeons and Dragons, where you have to fulfill certain requirements to get into them. One of the advantages of them, of many of the advanced careers, is that they give you more than just the 2 talent slots. So the assassin, for example, can actually have 2 tactic talents and a focus talent socketed to the character at any given time. And so not all advanced careers expand your character into the 3 talent option, but several of them do. And one of the things that you look for when you're choosing advanced careers is whether or not if they will provide you more talent sockets, so that you can be using more of your talents simultaneously. So I'm just going to show a couple of examples of some of the talents to give you an idea for what they do and what they're used for. So for focus talents, you might have an example like Keen Eyes, which is, gives you a bonus to all of your observation checks. And this is one of those that just gives a flat bonus, but it's only a single fortune die, so it's not a huge benefit, but it applies all the time. You have keen eyesight, and as long as you're using this talent, as long as you've got it active, you will gain that benefit. And then you've got things like I've Seen Worse, which is, you've seen such horrible things, you've been exposed to such atrocities in the old world that you can exhaust this talent to gain a bonus on willpower checks to resist fear and terror and intimidation and that sort of thing. So you're not easily spooked. But this is one where it gives you a larger bonus, but you have to do what's called exhausting the talent, which means that it can only be used every so often. It can't be used, it's not a constant bonus, but you'll use it when you know you've got to make a fear test, and then you have to kind of wait for this talent to come back to use again. And then for reputation, you might have things like Intimidating Presence, which gives you extra benefits when you're attempting intimidate skill checks. Or you might have connected, which gives you a bonus to social skill checks based on the fact that you know people, and those people know people, and those people have influence, or those people have knowledge that could help you out in social scenarios. Tactic talents, some common examples could be things like charge. Whenever you whenever you engage an opponent in the same round that you attack them, you gain some bonuses to your attack roll. And I'll sleep when I'm dead, which is you can basically push yourself beyond the limits of your endurance. So you can reduce, I think it's reduce, yeah, you can reduce the amount of fatigue that you're suffering from by 2 when you exhaust this talent. So you get kind of a second wind, and you can keep going when other people would be falling unconscious, would basically be gasping for breath and falling to the floor. And so that's just a real quick overview of what talents are and what talents do in the game. And so you will actually acquire several of them as you go through your careers. And there's another way that there's another place where talents are used, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So that's talents in a nutshell. And now I'm going to talk about I think I'm going to go into talking about fatigue and stress, which I've talked about before, but also talking about conditions, wounds, and all these other things that will accumulate on your character as you go through adventures.